All right, and we are back with another UNC Hoops Talk segment, Get to Know Your Tar Heel Fans. Very excited for today's guest. Unfortunately, this is actually the second time he's come on, but the first time Google or somebody messed up and did not record it over to YouTube. So definitely glad to have him back. Before we start, just want to say that if you'd like to come and be interviewed on here, there is not much of a process to go through. It is not that hard. Just contact me either at alltarheeldan on Twitter or email me at unchoopstalk@gmail.com, and we can talk and set that up, and hopefully it's not too painful. Also, if you enjoy these or enjoy this one in particular, we'd love for you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, whatever you can, and of course, I think the main objective of all of this is to connect with Tar Heel fans. So definitely find Eric and connect with him. I know he would love it, and hey, we're all Tar Heels, so we gotta love that. And without further ado, our professional acting. We were talking about this before the show. If you search on YouTube, Redneck 911, the star of the show. Eric, go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right, thanks, Dan. My name's Eric. Live in outside of Raleigh, North Carolina. Graphic designer by trade. I do stage work and theater work, and what he's referring to as Redneck 911 was a video back in 2006 that I'd worked on for a company in Wilmington. I had a lot of fun with that. I enjoy getting in front of a camera. I enjoy just entertaining people, making people laugh. It's a lot better than making people cry, that's for sure. But I'm a huge Carolina fan, have been since the mid-'80s, and I'm just really thrilled that Dan's got this UNC Hoops Talk up and going, and gives me a chance to meet and get to know Tar Heel fans from all over the country. So thanks a lot, Dan, for having me on.
Absolutely. And before we even get into the questions, just tell people up front where they can find and connect with you.
You can find me at ehouse44. It's just my 44 has been my favorite number since I can remember. A lot of former Carolina fans, a lot of former Carolina players have used 44. Most recently, Tyler Zeller. Incoming freshman Justin Jackson's going to be sporting 44 from what I hear, so that'll be nice. You can find me on LinkedIn. Pretty easy to find, Eric House. You can't really miss it. But yes, a lot of fun on social media. Try a little bit of everything: Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. Now I'm just starting Google Docs and Google Hangout. So this is adding to my repertoire, so to speak.
Well, I'm glad I could be a part of that. And I will make sure to have a link to at least your Twitter down below to have people access you easily, and so we can make that connection. So getting into the questions here, how long have you been a Tar Heel fan?
Well, I was, the earliest I can remember would probably be 1985 or 86. Some of the key names that I remember as a kid on the radio broadcast, long before they televised all the games, I remember names like Kenny Smith, King Rice, Jeff Lebo, and then later on Rick Fox and J.R. Reeds. But I've been a fan since mid to late 80s. Followed them all the way through, good times and bad, mostly good. 8-20, I definitely remember where I was during the 8-20 season. But I think we've rebounded, had some issues over the last few years, but I've got faith in Roy. I've got faith in the guys that he's bringing in. So now we'll just have to see if we can put it all together.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank goodness social media wasn't as strong during that 8-20 season, right?
Oh, gosh, no. These guys on Twitter, the players on Twitter would have been probably, they'd be more hurt than they are now, I think, as far as being bashed on. And yeah, it would have been a lot different back in the, was it 2001, 2002?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, good thing we don't go through that too much. So being so close, in North Carolina there, does it go farther back? Was your dad a Tar Heel fan? And is there any kind of moment that, for you personally, that you remember that maybe brought your fandom to a new level?
For me, my father was a Carolina fan. He went to Campbell University at the time, back in the I guess late 60s, early 70s is when he was in the Campbell, but he's always been a Carolina fan. He definitely didn't really push me to be a Carolina fan, but it just came natural. My mom's a state grad. My sister's a state grad. My wife's a state grad. So I'm surrounded by all these Wolfpack. Thankfully, the Duke fans that are part of our family, they live out in Durham, in Chapel Hill. So I don't get to hear too much about Duke all the time, more so than I do State, just because of my immediate is closer. But I've been probably, it really kicked into high gear, I would imagine, probably middle school or high school. My cousins and I played basketball all the time growing up. We lived on the same street. Just the whole street was full of family. So me and my cousins would always play basketball, and they were State fans. 2 or 3 of them were Carolina fans, so we usually get to talk trash. But for me, I think the '93 championship team was where it really kicked me into being a fan not only of UNC, but Eric Montross was probably my favorite player for a good 10 or so years, at least until Tyler Hansbrough came along. But now I try not to put too much favoritism towards one guy, because I just love Carolina. I love every player that's suited up, hopefully all for the right reasons, for the name on the front rather than the name on the back. But yeah, I've been since the early '90s. I think I've been following it. I do everything from stats. I know their height, weight, where they're from, weaknesses, strengths, and this is just from a non-scout perspective. I'm just an obsessive fan, I guess, but not too obsessive.
Well, you just can't get away from those State fans, can you? Or Duke fans, I guess, in North Carolina. But it should make it easier to pick teams with your cousins.
Yeah, it just makes it a little bit easier when you get 3 or 4 guys, that are Carolina fans. You don't mind playing with them, but when you're playing with 2 or 3 cousins that are State fans or Duke fans, it's a little hard for them to pass the ball. If you know what I'm saying.
So doing these interviews with people, the hardest question has been to pick a favorite Tar Heel, and you alluded a little bit to it. But if you had to pick one, maybe let you get away with 2. But who would be there for you?
It's pretty tough to decide. But I'm being a big guy myself. I've always tended to gravitate towards centers and power forwards. I could probably give you 5 or 6 that I would probably put in my top 5 or my super 6. But I think Montross and Hansbrough are pretty close to being 1A and 1B, or 1A and 1A minus in my book, just because Tyler's more recent, but Montross is kind of where it got me started. And I just recently worked at a car dealership in Chapel Hill, Durham and Chapel Hill, and that's where I actually met Eric Montross for the first time. And I've put a picture of that on Twitter several months ago. So if you visit eHouse44, you'll get to see just how short I am in comparison to every bit of that 7'1" Eric Montross. But being able to meet him personally has probably taken him a little over Tyler. Tyler was phenomenal. I think he gets a bad rap. Definitely, I wish he got more of a chance in the NBA right now to prove himself. But I think, Montross would probably be my #1 player, just mainly because I've met him recently. But he's also a 00, so maybe there's a symmetry thing with numbers, 00, 44. I don't know, but there's I've been a huge fan of Montross since '93, and watched him a little bit in the NBA. He was a journeyman, did a lot in the NBA, but wasn't a superstar. Definitely wasn't as good as he was a college player. But I think every center that comes through the UNC program now should pick something up from what Eric Montross used to do. If anything, to be able to act like a professional and know how to walk around and how to speak like a Tar Heel, like you got some sense. You know how to hold yourself. You don't act like some of those guys over in Raleigh or in Durham. You got to hold yourself a little bit to a higher standard if you're Carolina, in my opinion.
Well, and you're not the only person that looks short next to him. I went to a game this year and got there early enough I got a picture before they got on the radio and stuff with him, and I was actually on the first step of the stands, and he was behind me, and we were almost the same height, being a step up, so people thought I was pretty tall in the picture. But yeah, he definitely makes a lot of people look short. You're not the only one, and who can, it's ingrained in every Carolina fan's mind, the bloody mantras. And so we have to can't lose sight of that. So
a lot's changed since then. You can't bleed like that in today's game.
Yeah, you'd never get away with that.
No, I'm still surprised that he would bleed all over a court like that, and no one batted an eye.
Yeah. So a little bit easier question for people have been a least favorite Duke player.
For me, I think like we talked about in I guess our take one would probably be J.J. Redick. There's just not a lot about the guy I like. I mean, the dude could shoot, but outside of that, he kind of he made things obviously harder on us because he could shoot really well. But there's just some things about his attitude and the way he treated Carolina players on the court. He just wasn't. He just didn't. And I don't know the guy from a ham sandwich, but he just doesn't seem to be, the nicest guy. But it is kind of another toss-up. Anybody that chose Duke over Carolina definitely needs to be up there in my top, 5. Jay Williams, I thought, was all but locked to be a Tar Heel, if I'm not mistaken, in the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
He was, from what I understood, UNC lean. I think at the time he was a top 5 or top 10 player in high school. We had a chance to get him, and he went to the dark side. So any player that chooses Duke over UNC, they can go to Kentucky, they can go to Arizona. I don't care about that, but don't pick a school 8 miles down from Chapel Hill and expect someone to not to like you. But yeah, I would say Redick, and then maybe followed by any Duke player that chose Duke over Carolina.
That's a nice tie for second there.
Mm-hmm.
But speaking of holding yourself to a higher standard, in the Carolina way or whatever you want to call it, J.J. Redick did a lot of things that a lot of people in Carolina Blue would never get away with, in the Dean Smith era and Roy Williams as well. So it's one of those players you'd love to have on your team because he can shoot that way, and if he's not, you just absolutely can't stand him.
Yeah.
So definitely a popular pick there. So again, being as close as you are there, do you get to go to games often every season? Do you have kind of a total how many you've been to? And also, what's the most memorable or best moment you've had in person at a Carolina game?
I think early on I didn't really go to many games. I went mostly to the blue and white games that they had back in the late 90s, early 2000s, when they actually had a 30-minute to 45-minute scrimmage between a white and blue team. I remember those pretty fondly. I remember going down there when Joseph Forte was on his official visit, and a lot of people seem to forget about Joseph Forte. He was only a 2 years and gone kind of guy, but it was just a really neat atmosphere to be there to watch UNC just kind of play each other in a glorified practice, but to get to see potential UNC recruits walking around. But to me, I think the biggest impact was when I was able to go to the NIT game that was played in Chapel Hill. It was one of those, you come in and seats are first come, first serve. I got to be second row under the basket on the UNC tunnel side. So that was really neat, being able to see Jawad Williams and Rashad McCants. That was also, I think, Doherty's first and only year or second year. But it was a lot of fun to be able to get that close and actually be part of the action. The guys don't look quite as they look a lot bigger in person than they do on the TV. But it was just a great experience. I've taken my cousins who are Carolina fans to the games. My nephew and I went last year to one game. I try to go to at least a game a year if I can. Usually it has to be either cheap tickets or tickets that were either given to me because it is an hour away from where I live. But don't get to go to nearly as many as I would like to. And everything's televised, so I got the best seat in the house, staying at home, watching it with some Carolina friends, and just kind of go from there.
Yeah, I don't think any Carolina fan says they get to go to as many games as they want, maybe unless they have season tickets. But I'm definitely in the same boat. I'm in Tennessee here, so try to make it out, once a year, once every few years even, and maybe try to catch a road game if they get close. But yeah, there's absolutely nothing like that atmosphere, and probably one of the few people. Well, obviously everybody that was at that game, but not many people in our generation can say they saw him play in Carmichael. So definitely a special environment there. So moving into kind of present time, what are your expectations for the upcoming season? You mentioned the class coming in being very solid. You got just about everybody minus Leslie and James Michael coming back. Whether you want to go super hopeful, realistic, however you see it, what are your expectations?
Well, I think I would just go with what we had this past year. Naturally, I think we would be picked in the top 10 coming in this season. I think we're going to miss James Michael McAdoo more than I think people realize. I mean, he's gotten a lot of grief. He was almost the Dexter Strickland, of this past, year, where Dexter did a lot of things. He just didn't show it on paper a lot. I think James Michael, we're going to miss that toughness that he did bring. He didn't make some of the brightest decisions with the ball, but I think it's going to really help Bryce. It's going to help Isaiah with their reaching their ceiling maybe a little earlier. Kennedy, I think, once he gets into better shape, and that's a lot coming from another guy who's a big guy, but it's like with Roy's style, you got to be able to get up and down, and I think with him and Joel in the middle, every year you're going to see a player improve. It's just how much can we really rely on them to improve from year to year. But I think Kennedy's going to have a breakout year. I think once he knows how to be a big guy in the ACC. I really do like Joel. I think he's just a phenomenal physical specimen. I don't think he quite understands yet how to be a 7-footer. And of course, he's only been playing basketball for 5 or 6 years, when a lot of guys play even younger. But I think for me, realistically, but also hopeful, I would say Final Four is possible. It just depends on the 3 guys coming in and what Roy sees them as far as if anyone's going to be starting, if how many minutes they'll get if they don't start. I think this year's going to be versatile. They're going to have a lot of players. We could actually have 5 point guards on the floor at one time. So we've got quite a few guys that could play several positions. You've got 2 or 3 guys coming in that can play. You've got Pinson that can play the 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 in a small lineup. Jackson can play the 2, 3, and 4. I think Joel Berry is going to be a great change of pace to go along with Page. I think we're going to see Page at the 2, but I think realistically, it's too soon to really claim a national title right now. I mean, you've got Kentucky's got 5 or 7 6'10" and taller guys on their roster, and 9 All-Americans. But it's going to be a fun year. I think we're going to get back to the UNC of the past. Still depends on the outside shooting. If Page is the only one shooting threes, it's going to really rely on Bryce and Kennedy and JP Tokoto being able to compete inside. Outside of that, a little luck doesn't hurt. we also kind of need Roy to stay in town. We don't need him leaving to L.A. and all these other rumors that are floating around today. And it should be just rumors, maybe just to get some guy out of Kentucky, maybe in order to get him to go. But I think we could definitely get Final Four. Certain things have to align. You got to get lucky. But the guys coming in need to, everybody needs to know what their role is. It needs to be defined as early as possible. Play for the, for the UNC jersey. Your own personal accolades, they'll come later, but I just hope that y'all play together, play as a team. If they do that, they listen to Roy. I mean, we've won 2 championships under Roy. He said the same thing coming in to his first class there, that if you just do what I say and listen to me, I'll get you where you want to go. And within 2 years, they won a championship. So Roy gets a lot of grief too. He gets a lot of dadgums and a lot of, some of those other not so cuss words he likes to say, but I think he gets a lot of grief, and I think it's he's our coach. We got to support him. We got to support our players, but we're also tough on them because we want to accept excellence and nothing less. We're just used to that. But they are kids. They think they're adults, but they're still kids. But I'm really looking forward to this season. I can't wait to see some of the strange lineups that we would never have been able to do in the last couple of years. To be able to put, a 4-guard lineup to match up against the Duke 4-guard lineup. So that'll be nice to see. I'm just really excited to see J.P. Tokoto make another step in the right direction. He did a phenomenal job this past season. He does it again, and Hubert Davis has become a great guru as far as shooters. So I think he could really help out Pinson and Jackson and keep improving with Tokoto. But I'm just excited for right now. I'm a Cubs fan, so I'm excited for anything other than baseball at this point. So I'm ready for UNC football first, and then we'll worry about basketball come November.
Yeah, and it should be a great year. A lot of people excited, and what else can you really expect besides be competitive and have a great year. So to wrap up, I'm gonna kind of let you throw anything else out there that you want to Tar Heel Nation, and also throw out where they can find you and connect with you as well. But before, I just have to remind everybody, I'll get the link to Eric's Twitter at least down in the description, and any other links he can wants to send me and put out there, they'll be down in the description of this video. He did warn me before we went on that on Twitter he'll shoot it like it is, so you have to be willing to take it and embrace it if you're going to connect with him and talk with him on Twitter. So no softies there. Again, if you guys like this video, please give a thumbs up, subscribe so that you don't miss any future interviews with Tar Heel fans. And again, if you'd like to come on and be interviewed, I'd love to have you connect with me and let me know. So Eric, finish it up. Any final words that you have for Tar Heel Nation, and also where they can find you?
Well, I'll probably just finish it off with my own soapbox as far as the NCAA and the NBA need to come to an agreement that one and done needs to be done. It needs to be gone. I'm not a fan of one and dones. It's not good for college basketball. It's not good for UNC. It's not good for the NBA. I'm an advocate that baseball and football have it right. 3 years, you can go after 3 years. NBA, it's going to be their rule. Everybody bashes NCAA that they think it's the NCAA holding the kids down, but it's the NBA rule, and the NCAA can't do it without NBA's help. But I think if they're good enough to go out of high school, let them go. Baseball does the same thing. If they can go after high school, more power to them. Let them go make money. Let them go earn a living. To me, that's the American way. But if they go to school, if they commit and sign a national letter of intent, they should be able to go to. They should go to school for 3 years. I think you'll see a much more competitive team. You'll see a much more competitive conference. And then overall, the NCAA will be much more competitive, and you won't have the haves and the have-nots. But I'm a advocate. I'm really hoping that that does happen at some point in the future. I can only imagine what UNC's teams would have been like in years past with Wallace and Stackhouse not leaving after their sophomore year. We could have had a championship in the mid to late 90s if we had had a rule like this in place at that time. But yeah, on Twitter, I do call it like I see it. Me and some other Carolina fans, we communicate a lot during games. If it's a Carolina player that reads Twitter feeds, you might want to wait until a day or two or a week later before you start reading it, because I can be pretty tough. Some of my guys on Twitter can be tough, but we do love our Tar Heels. Don't ever get that wrong. We're supportive of the guys. We just have a little bit different take on how they should be able to use their talents and succeed. So I'm a Carolina born and bred in North Carolina. Can't wait for the new season. Follow me on ehouse44 at Twitter, and I look forward to meeting some more Carolina guys in the future.
Absolutely, and I totally agree with the either go and right out of high school or stay at least 2 years, if not 3 years. But that's a whole other topic. We don't need to go off on that. We'll have to have you back on one of the podcasts where we can talk more basketball and
oh yeah, it'll be like
that.
first take with Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless. It'll have to be something else. We'll have to call it Carolina Connection or something, something different.
So Eric, thank you for taking the time coming on. It was great having you. Again, everybody, go follow him, but do so with a little bit of tough skin, if you would. And until next week, go Heels.
Thanks a lot, Dan. Take care.
You too.